You're not actually pushy. You never were. Pushy isn't a personality thing. It's a timing problem. And the exact openers you can steal, the 4 questions that are going to make us say the problem out loud, and how to close by guiding instead of shoving, where the close feels more like customer service and not pressure. Be the consultant, not the hunter. Hunters chase people to the corner. Consultants ask and guide people to the next step. So by the end of this video, you're going to sell in the DMs without sending one pushy message, because selling in the DMs was never the problem. Okay, we're gonna kick off this presentation today. The title is gonna be how to sell in the DMs without being pushy. This is gonna be the 8 things that you need to remember. Let's go right in. So number one, the problem. Pushy doesn't actually lose the sale at the close. It loses it at hello, right? And you never really see it happen because pushy is 100% a timing thing. So nobody really like straight up tells you that, hey, you're being pushy, right? At least in today's social environment. Today's social environment, people just ghost you or ignore you or whatever, right? Like they don't actually voice some of these things. So that's what I mean by pushy doesn't lose at the sale. Or sorry, that's what essentially, right? So here's what you're going to learn in today's video. So number one, you're going to learn why pushy actually happens and like why it's a process, not like a personality, right? Number two, you're going to learn the things that keep it non-pushy. So principles to remember, not a script. Okay. And then number three, you're going to learn the exact openers and questions, word for word scripts to steal as well. Right. And then number four, you're going to learn how to close without pressure and guide the sale instead of forcing it. Okay. So first, why does it happen? Like why do people feel like other people are pushy in general, right? So buyers and people in general, right? They show up to a sales conversation with their guard up, right? They've been pitched 1,000 times. They're scanning every single message for anything that you could possibly sell and anything that the moment that they feel like there's anything icky or they have the inclination that you are trying to sell them, then that gives them the green flag to say, I'm out of here, right? So buyers inherently are showing up with their guard up, and which inevitably does not like it's not necessarily a problem there, right? Thousands and thousands. So remember that people are being sold every single day. So it's kind of just a natural proposal from a stranger. They're gonna say yes after a relationship, and that's the idea here, right? Pushy is me like believing that our relationship is stronger than it really is, and then me trying to accelerate it faster than that timing, if that makes sense. So the big idea, right? You're not really being too pushy. You're just rushing the pitch, right? And everything that follows, and that's really important here with a process that if you've been watching my videos, you've seen how we've done it where we ask a lot of questions, we ask permission, we do a lot of these steps, right? And so every step that the prospect takes through the buyer journey in our process, they're basically doing it and opting in for each step, right? That's permission-based selling. Now, in the cases of being too pushy, now a lot of times the feeling of being too pushy is asking too early. And so that's what we mean by rushing the pitch here, right? And so most importantly than anything else, and I tell this to my reps all the time, like the conversation you're having with this person is like a new friend, right? It's take the DM part out of it. Take the fact that it's a social media profile, you see a face and different things like that. But remember, it's like a real person on the other side of the screen. And so essentially what we're doing at scale is having relationships with people, right? And so we're developing a relationship. And so at the very beginning of a relationship, I'm not going to do certain things, right? And that's the same thing here. Like if I were to just immediately meet someone at a bar or at a coffee shop, just that day, right? It's going to be even if they were someone that could be a qualified prospect for my business, it's very unlikely I'm going to pitch them immediately the moment I meet them, right? Well, if we had spent a little more time to build the relationship instead of trying to rush to making money, then they would feel better and we would feel better too, right? So let's keep these things in mind. These are the 8 things, right? So number 1 is earn the open. 2, diagnose first. 3, get permission. 4, make the turn. 5 is let them sell themselves. 6 is handle pushback, right? 7 is close by guiding. Number 8, follow up and value. So we're going to go through all 8 of these things to remember in just a moment now. So number 1, earn the open, right? So really key aspect of everything is instead of trying to just jump to the gun, because even though, yes, we're trying to make money. Yes, we are someone that has something to sell. Yes, we have a great product. Yes, we can help people. Absolutely, right? But we need to earn the open first. And how we earn the open is by starting a conversation with someone, not by trying to pitch them in one message. Now, is it technically more efficient for us just to pitch them in the first message? Yeah, 100%. And are people going to buy? Absolutely. But is that going to be the case for every single one? No, absolutely not, right? And so what we want to optimize for is longevity here. We don't want to optimize for the small percentage. So that being said, that's why we want to start with a conversation, okay? So number 1, we want to be specific and reference their actual world. So really important with our message is understanding the context by which they sent us a message. And so if we know that context, then it becomes a lot easier for us to open a conversation with them. So for example, if someone's messaging in about our community, right? So let's say we put up a call to action and we say, hey, comment the word community if you want to join my community, right? When someone comments that word community and then they get in the DMs with us, very likely they want to talk to us about the community, right? So our first sentence, our first phrase in there could be like, hey, thanks so much for commenting about the community or commenting to learn more about the community. So being very specific about what they did in the context by which they came, super important. Number 2 is you want to end with an easy question. So something simple to answer. And so, ideally not a yes/no answer at the beginning, right? But an easy question to answer. So it could be like, what made you follow me? Or what made you reach out for the guide, right? So let's say in the case of what I mentioned earlier, reaching out for the community, right? We could say, hey, what got you interested in reaching out about joining the community, right? That could be very important. So notice here, like the way that we earn the open is by being specific and making it simple for them to respond to us. Okay? Here's some openers that you can steal. Okay, here's a specific opener, right? Saw your post on X thing. Curious, how's that going for you so far? Hey, saw your post that you just launched a coaching program. How's everything going with it, right? That's the specific opener. And then the opener that we can use right after that, or a different type of opener could be like, hey, just curious, what do you know about this topic, right? So what do you know about coaching programs? Or what do you know about generating leads online? Or what do you know about life insurance, right? These are good openers for getting just the conversation started, okay? Number 2, thing to remember. So we're going to diagnose before you prescribe. And so just like a doctor, right? No doctor is going to prescribe until they actually do an exam, okay? So the key here is that just like when you go to a doctor, they're going to ask you, how long you've been feeling bad, what kind of medications you're on, if you're on any, right? They're going to go through a whole history assessment and ask a lot of questions before they get you to the point to where they actually prescribe something. Similar here, right? We want to understand a lot about our prospects before we actually drop an offer, okay? So we want to understand who they are, who they are, right? So that includes your job. That might include your family. That might include like your dynamic and how big your family is and how many brothers, sisters, and that kind of stuff, right? It could include your marriage if you're married or if you're single. It could include, your racial background, right? Kind of depends on your offer and your situation, but we want to understand where they're at, okay? Also includes their job. Number two, find the gap in where they want it to be. So meaning like there's a reason that they're talking to us. Like nobody goes into the doctor's office because they're not sick or they're not feeling, or nobody's like, oh yeah, great, I'm feeling great, that's why I'm here, right? No, nobody does that. So we got to find out like what's going on with them right now today, and then what's the generalized outcome that they're looking for in the future, right? And I shouldn't say generalized outcome, but meaning like we want to find out what they want specifically, right? People want different things. So so a lot of you guys out here sell like online lead generation, right? Well, there's people who want online lead generation because they are tired of doing the normal way. There's people who want it to be able to increase their current efforts of online lead generation, right? So there's a bunch of different angles of which people want to buy, but we want to find out like what's the thing, right? And then we want to get them to say the problem out loud. Very important. They need to say the problem out loud and they need to label it themselves. That's key because that's going to be the first step towards actually like getting them to admit that they actually need help, which then segues into our offer. Okay. So some diagnosis questions, right? What made you look into this now? Right? It surfaces the trigger. So it surfaces like the intent behind like why it is that they're even speaking to you to begin with. Okay. And so like if you have a dating offer, right, maybe the stimulus here is the fact that their girlfriend just broke with them, right? Would be really important to know that. That would be a very good indicator of a buying thing, right? Or what do you want where do you want to be 6 months from now, right? Opens up the gap. Are you happy with how it's going? That's a great question. Finds out like their temperature on like what it is or how they're feeling about everything going on. Number four, what's it costing you to leave? Right? Or what's it costing you to leave it? Or what would be different if you didn't have to do that? Right? Makes the pain very, very real. So these questions, whenever we ask them, we're digging up information to learn more and kind of build like what I call like a client profile of someone. Understanding like, like what they like, what they don't like, what they like about their job, why are they talking to us? What's the pain? What's the big problem that they're giving us? So a lot of these questions are all geared around finding out that information, right? And then thing number three to remember is you want to get permission before you present, right? So anytime we are moving that conversation forward, especially when it comes to like presenting our actual offer, if we're going to send them a link or a training video or something like that, right? Don't send unsolicited links, right? We want to build a little anticipation and then ask them if they would like us to send them the link, right? If I just send it to them, they may have wanted it, may have not wanted it, right? The link's in their hands, but that's kind of like whatever. But in the cases of I ask them for their permission, I say, hey, look, I have a video that can break down exactly how you can make $100,000 in the next 90 days using our system. Is that something that you're interested in? You're cool if I send it over, right? Notice that's me building anticipation and I'm asking permission to send it over. But in this case, like if they don't want it, they can just say no, right? If they say yes, then we give them the information. But this will help you increase your amount of people that actually consume your content after you send it to them because you're getting their permission ahead of time, right? Number four thing to remember, you want to make the turn. So you want to make sure to pivot your offer as the natural next step, acknowledgement, reframe, or ask, right? And so whenever we're making the turn, this specifically can be in two places the turn shows up, right? Number one place that the turn shows up is when we actually are in a sales conversation. We're about halfway through, and now we're getting the prospect to let us know that they want help implementing the thing that we're teaching or whatever it is that we have to offer, right? That's one example of the turn, and that's the one you see right here on the screen too. There's another example of the turn that happens way further up in the conversation, I should say, but that turn is what turns a lead generation conversation into a sales conversation. Here's an example. Let's say that someone comes in for one of your lead magnets, they message in, right? And they message in for a free video. Well, if someone messages in for a free video, that does not mean by any chance that they are ready to buy your next offer, right? But a lot of people, what happens is they will, instead of making the pivot and kind of slowly getting there, as soon as someone reaches out for a book, they're going to start pitching them. And that ends up causing a lot of icky feelings between prospects and stuff like that. So that's kind of what we're teaching here, right? get permission first before we do anything. Number 5, we want to let them sell themselves. Okay. Once they're interested, we want to stop selling. We want to answer questions. We want to lay out info. We want to let them choose. We want to make sure that we focus on answering their questions and clarifying. Don't push, right? In this process, if we are to persuade and push them, we need to first make sure that they understand what they're purchasing. They understand everything that they're buying. So in those cases, we want to lean towards clarifying first. Now, once we've clarified everything about the offer, everything like that, then and only then are we allowed to push them forward, right? But that's what I mean by let them sell themselves in this case, right? Once they're interested, we're not pushing very hard. We're clarifying first, making sure that we answer their questions. We're laying out the information so that way they understand exactly what they're getting. We're letting them choose what they want, right? And then, and only then, after they've made that choice, will we then apply any kind of pressure, if at all. But in most cases, when you do it this way and you're asking questions and allowing them to choose along the way, you're going to feel that there's no pressure even need to be applied because they're already sold most of the way by the time they get there. Okay. Number 6 thing we need to remember, right? Just want to handle pushback very calmly. Okay. An objection isn't a no, it's a question. So we don't want to argue with people. We want to make sure that we isolate it, acknowledge it, and reframe it. Okay. So when people are giving us pushback and asking questions, it can be very tempting to lose our temper or, be like, oh, you just don't see the value, da 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 da, right? None of that. We want to make sure that we don't react emotionally to pushback and objections. The objection isn't a no, it's a question. Right? And the question is what allows us to clarify and make sure that it's something that they are interested in and we can build value at the same time. Okay. Now, whenever people are pushing back, right, we want to isolate the one real objection. So what does that mean? It means that there is usually, so someone says that multiple things, sometimes they'll say like 3 or 4 objections in one statement, right? We want to make sure that we get rid of all of the extras and we find out like, what's the big one here? Right? And it might be that all 3 or 4 of them are big ones and we might need to handle all of them individually, and that's fine, right? But we want to isolate that out first. Number 2, we want to acknowledge it, but we don't want to argue with them, right? If you go against the grain and you argue with them, then that's not going to work because then it's my belief set versus their belief set, and that never really works, okay? Well, most importantly, we want to tie everything back to their goal, and that is the key for handling pushback calmly. So the number 7 tip for not being pushy is you want to close by guiding, not by pressuring. So the close isn't pressure, it's a direction. So we want to tell them the simple next step and then lead them to it, right? So assuming the step is basically like, most people start with this package, right? Which one works for you? So, if you have multiple package set up, like a 2 or 3 package system, you can say, hey, most people go with the gold package, which one works for you? Right? It tells, what this does, it paces people, but it also tells the passive buyers exactly what to do. And it keeps everything simple, right? Because a confused prospect never buys. So by guiding them through that buying process and telling them, hey, hey, here's the prices, but most people go with this to start off, right? Now you're kind of anchoring them, setting expectations, and allowing that purchasing decision to be easier. Okay, so we want to close them by guiding. And you can take this on another level. Maybe you had a conversation with them and you tell them exactly which package they should buy, right? So it's like, hey, look, based on our conversation, I really think that Elite may not make sense right now, so let's get the Pro package, right? So a lot of these things can be done through guiding, not by pressuring people in terms of sales. So let's go into number 8. Really key, and the last thing we're going to remember today for today's video is we want to follow up with value, not guilt, okay? Most sales are in the follow-up. I would venture to say, 60 to 70% of them are in the follow-up, okay? So we want to make sure that when we're doing our follow-up, we do it in a way that is tasteful, right? In a non-pushy way, we give value and we don't guilt trip people, because if we guilt trip people, then they will just not respond, period, okay? So we have a few different touches. Right here on the slide, it says 3 touches. There's more touches than that. You can go as high as 7, right? But each one adds value. We're never going to send messages like, just checking in. And then finally speaking, we're going to always try to end or leave off the conversation with some kind of resource. Okay. So let's watch the difference between these 2 conversations. Pushy versus smooth. Okay. Pushy's on the left, smooth is on the right. Pushy's on the left. We say, hey, I help coaches at 10K per month, 10K months. You want in. Left on red. Number 2, saw you launch your coaching. How's it going so far? Honestly slow. Not many clients yet. Got it. Where do you want it to be? I might have something that helps. He says, oh yeah, send it over. So you'll notice that like we're having a conversation with this person here. They're more receptive and open, and this gives us a chance to get at bats. Whereas in this one, the other case, we don't even get one. All right. So what's the mindset here? We want to be a consultant, not a hunter. Okay. So hunters, they chase and corner people. Consultants, they talk to people, they guide, they ask questions, and they help them make informed decisions. Okay. So basically how this shatters out, or how this kind of comes down to later, is the close ends up being more like customer service and helping them get what they already want, and less like closing, hard objection overcoming, because we're finding the right people, and we're also having a conversation with them that makes the next decision like the most obvious one, right? And then we get this question all the time, but won't soft selling lose sales? Soft on pressure, hard on the ask. Okay, so you can still ask for the sale clearly and directly. You just have to earn the right to ask, right? Being non-pushy does not mean that we're passive. It just means that we are not applying unnecessary pressure, right? Trust converts higher than being pushy. So permission-based DMs close at far higher like rates than cold pitching, right? Soft front, strong close. Now, if you remember these three things, right? Number one, pushy equal rushing the pitch, so slow down and feel natural. Number two, get permission every turn, at every turn. So they invited it, so it's never pushy. So when I say get permission at every turn, I mean every question, everything, the training video, we're getting permission. The VSL, we're getting permission. To send the payment link, we're getting permission to send it, right? They are inviting it, so it's never pushy. And then number three, you want to be a consultant, not a hunter. Okay, we want to ask and guide people. We're not going to chase them down. Very important. So do this today. What I want you to do is I want you to pick one of those opener DMs. Sorry. So here's your homework. Do this today. Pick one open DM that you want to start the sales process with, right? Or that you want to audit on your own side. Two, find the thing that you skipped, right? Find the thing that you were skipped in that conversation that you probably need to get to that information. And then number three, you want to make sure to go ahead and send that next message, craft it out like we covered today, but also getting permission, right? So either a permission-based ask, or maybe it is a question that moves that conversation along, right? But whenever we send that next message, whether it's a video or a lead magnet or an asset or a masterclass, anything like that, get the permission first. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed this. Selling in DMs was never the problem. Pushing was the problem. Okay, so if you'd like to subscribe, I break down DM stuff every single week. If you want to get my lead magnet masterclass, just go on Instagram. Links down below in the description. Message me the word leads, and then I will get you that masterclass. Hope you guys have a good rest of the day. Enjoyed it today, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.